Hey everyone, welcome to the Clever Girl Finance YouTube channel. This is Bola from clevergirlfinance.com, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 critical things you need to do to recession-proof your finances. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because economies are not always smooth sailing. There are going to be times where the economy is not so great, and even if the economy is great, there might be times in your life where things are not going according to plan. You may experience a job loss, you may experience unplanned expenses, and so you want to make sure that regardless of what's going on in the economy or what's going on in your personal life, you're still able to stay on top of your finances and pay your bills. So let's get into this episode where I'm going to walk you through 5 critical things you need to do to recession-proof your finances. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 critical things you need to be doing to recession-proof your finances. And like I mentioned, it may not necessarily be a recession. It could be a life situation that happens, like a job loss, but you just want to make sure that you are prepared for a storm. That way, your whatever happens in your life, or if a recession occurs, it doesn't become a personal financial crisis. So let me first of all talk about a little bit about how economies work. So economies are cyclical, and that means that they go through periods of expansion, and they also go through periods of economic growth. So, that is when the economy is doing really well. The stock market is on the up and up. There are jobs, good things are happening in the economy. And this can happen for several years. There are also periods of decline, and these periods of decline are known as recessions, or in more severe situations, these are called depressions. And during a recession, there is typically a decline in industrial and trade activity, and this can severely impact your personal finances. And the reason why it can impact your personal finances is that when recessions occur, it comes with things like job losses, unemployment, drop in real estate values, and decline of investments. So you probably remember the 2008 recession. There was very, very high unemployment rates. The stock market was down, and this lasted for a couple of years. So that is the impact of a recession. However, regardless of whether there's a recession going on or not, life goes on and you still need to be able to pay your bills. And so how do you properly prepare your finances to weather an inevitable recession? Because recessions are going to happen. If you look at the history of the US economy, the economy goes through cycles. It goes through periods of expansion and economic growth, and it also goes through periods of decline and recession. And a lot of times this is the economy readjusting itself, or due to decisions that leaders may have made. Recessions are inevitable. So how do you properly prepare yourself? Well, there's 5 key things you want to make sure you have in place. This way, when a recession occurs, it does not become a personal financial crisis for you. That's the last thing you want. And whether it's a recession or a life situation that you did not expect, you don't want this to become a personal financial crisis. And you can weather either one of these occurrences with a good plan. So let's get into the 5 things you need to be doing. The first thing you want to do, the first critical thing you want to do is bulk up your emergency savings. Having an emergency savings is very, very important. In a recession, having a fully funded emergency savings account can save you a lot of stress. And it can help you avoid becoming financially overextended or having to leverage debt just to get by. What happens when people don't have emergency savings is that they end up having to use credit cards or loans in order to keep up with their bills. And these loans come at a high cost because you're going to have to pay them back in interest. So when it comes to your emergency savings, ideally to start out, you want to put aside 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses in an account that is designated only for your emergencies. And emergencies could be job losses, unexpected death in the family, unfortunately, or anything that is a true emergency. And your basic living expenses are the things that you need to survive, to keep your lights on. So, it'll be your expenses around your housing, your transportation, and your food. And because of the unpredictability of how long a recession can last, it is ideal to get your emergency savings up to 12 months of your basic living expenses. And the reason why I say this is because having 12 months put aside will give you ample time to find a new job, since jobs can be harder to come by in an economy experiencing a recession. So what if you don't have an emergency savings account right now? Well, you can set a first goal to get yourself to $1,000, and then every month put aside some money into your emergency savings when you get paid, so that you can get to 3 months, and then 6 months, and then over time 12 months. And if an emergency does come up while you are saving, then you leverage your emergency fund, of course, and then once you have dealt with that emergency, you start to put the money back. Okay, so the next critical thing you want to do to prepare for a recession or a life situation is to diversify your income. Have you ever heard the saying, "Don't put your eggs in one basket"? Well, that applies to your investments. It is important to have a well-diversified investment portfolio, and that means that you don't want your investments to be tied up in one stock or one real estate property, for example. You want to make sure that your investments are spread across multiple industries and also multiple areas. That way, if one industry or area experiences a decline, it does not completely sink your portfolio. So let's say you are invested in the stock market. You can spread your investments across multiple sectors such as consumer goods, healthcare, and technology. And a great way to invest in the stock market is through funds, mutual funds, index funds, ETFs. You can also have a combination of investments in the stock market, in the real estate market, and in small business. However, I will say that whatever you invest in, you want to make sure that you do your research and be clear on your investment objectives, your risk tolerance, when you'll need your money, and exactly what you're investing your money for. And if a recession comes along, don't panic. Don't go ahead and start selling everything you own. Like I mentioned, economies are cyclical, and it might take some time, it might take a few years, but economies typically recover from recessions. And so the last thing you want to do is sell your investments at a low cost, especially when you know that over time the investments are going to recover, especially if they're a good investment. So when you're thinking about investments, you want to think about investing for the long term. So if you're going to need that money within 5 years, in 5 years or less, you don't want to tie that money up in any kind of investment. You want to keep it more liquid. So for example, if you're trying to buy a house or you're trying to save for a short-term goal, you want to keep that cash liquid. But for long-term investing, just remember your objectives and have a clear plan and clear strategy. And it is very likely that your investments will weather a bad economy if you just give it time. And if you're feeling confused or you don't know how to start planning for your long-term investments, definitely talk to a financial advisor, and they will give you the information and provide you with the help that you need. Okay, so number 3, the third critical thing you want to do is pay off your debt. The last thing you want to do is worry about paying off debt in a bad economy, especially with the increased rates of unemployment. Paying off your debt will save you a ton of money in interest payments, and in addition, you'll also be able to put those extra funds once your debt is paid off towards bulking up your emergency savings and towards your other financial goals. So I recommend that you focus on paying off your high interest debt first before you consider investing, and save yourself some money. Because let's say, for example, you have a credit card that has a 19% interest rate. It makes more sense to pay off that 19% interest rate debt, unless you know for certain that your investments are going to be giving you a return greater than 19%. And that in itself is speculation, because it's very hard to predict the outcome or timing around how investments will perform. And so if you have high interest debt, as opposed to focusing on investing right now, and keep in mind that the average return on the stock market over the long term is about 8%. So if you have high interest debt right now, you want to focus on getting rid of that debt and saving yourself some money. Those interest payments are very expensive. And once that debt is gone, you can then put all that money to investing. And so on the blog, if you stop by the Clever Girl Finance blog later, I have a blog post on creating a smart debt repayment strategy. And just come onto the blog and you can go over here and search for debt repayment, and that blog post will come up. Okay, so Number one was bulk up your emergency savings. Number two was diversify your investments. Number three is pay off debt. Number four is very important, and this is learn how to budget and live within your means. Living within your means is the key to building wealth. It means that you eliminate having to leverage debt in order to live your life, because a lot of people who struggle with budgeting or who don't have a budget end up spending more than they earn. But your budget allows you to determine what you're earning, and it helps you keep your expenses below your income. This way you don't have to leverage debt. And your budget will also help you highlight what areas you need to cut back on. So if you spend a couple weeks or a month tracking your spending, even do it week by week, you'll be able to see areas in which you're spending, and you may not have realized it because you may not have actively tracked them. So your ultimate goal with your budget should be to widen the gap between your income and your expenses as much as you can by increasing your income and reducing your expenses. So the combination of two, because the money you have left over in the gap is money you can use towards the things that really matter to you. And that would include saving and investing, paying off debt. And so your goal is to figure out ways to increase your income. And it could be doing things like selling things you don't use, getting a part-time job, starting a low-cost side hustle, and then looking at your expenses as well and figuring out what areas you can cut back. Do you have memberships or subscriptions that you don't need to have? Are you overspending on coffee chains? Those are all things that your budget will help you determine. And I have a great blog post on budgeting styles. And again, you can come over to the Clever Girl Finance blog at clevergirlfinance.com/blog and just search budgeting, and all my budgeting blog posts will come up. Okay, the fifth thing you want to do is create multiple streams of income. So the average millionaire has 7 sources of income, and that is for good reason, because having multiple streams of income increases how much money you have coming in, and it also acts as a buffer in the event that you lose a source of income. So if you lose a job, you still have income coming from a side business or one of your multiple side businesses. So if there is something that you are passionate about, or something that you do that you get complimented on all the time, consider turning it into a side hustle to generate some additional income. And so those are the 5 key things you want to make sure you have in place to recession-proof your finances. And just to go over them again really quickly, it is bulking up your emergency savings, diversifying your investments, paying off debt, learning how to budget and live within your means, and number 5, creating multiple streams, multiple means of income. And so you can't predict when a recession will happen. It's a bad idea to try to predict it, but it's important to keep in mind that even if a recession doesn't happen, you can experience a financial downturn in your own personal economy at any time. And so regardless of what's happening, you want to make sure that you are well prepared to weather any storms or any unplanned circumstances that may come your way. So if you don't have these 5 things in place, it's a good idea to start working on them now. So I hope this has been useful to you guys. I appreciate you guys listening. And if you'd like to learn more about Clever Girl Finance, head over to the website, clevergirlfinance.com. I have a search feature on the blog where you can search for my blog content to read about the topics I mentioned: budgeting, debt repayment, creating a financial plan. And you can also subscribe to get access to my free resource library. I have an awesome resource library of checklists and tip sheets that can help you as you work on your money plan, as you work on improving your finances. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll be back again with another topic soon.